everyone, welcome to this video tutorial. Today we're going to have an introduction to arrays. An array is a linear data structure used to store data. The scenario is a scientist measures outdoor temperature 5 times a week and he needs to determine the maximum. So here's a little simulator and the code is going to process 5 items of data and determine the maximum value. Okay. Now we've been given some starter code. Here it is, and it looks like we're going to be using global variables to store and process the data. Our program is going to give us a welcome message. We're then going to generate some data for these global variables. We're going to call a function, which is going to determine the maximum value, and it's going to return an integer. Okay, so that's an interesting function. And we're going to send that integer to another function called displayMax. Okay, there's the welcome function. There's a funky little while loop. See if you can see what's going on there. It's quite entertaining. We're going to generate some data just by using math.random for those 5 global variables. And now we need to determine the maximum value. Now, the logic that we could use here is if temp1 is greater than all of them, so if temp1 is greater than temp2 and temp1 is greater than temp3 and temp1 is greater than temp4 and temp1 is greater than temp5, okay, if that's true, we can suggest that the maximum value is temp1. Let's just declare that variable. It's an integer. Okay, so there's some logic to help us solve the problem. Else, if temp2 is greater than all of them, it's greater than temp1, and it's greater than temp3, and temp2 is greater than temp4. Oh, this is going to take some time. Temp2 is greater than temp4. Now, of course, I'm going to stop there, but you can see what we're trying to do here. Now, this logic, although it's a little bit monotonous, it will work. Unfortunately, we're only working with 5 items of data. But imagine if we had 100 items or 1,000 items of data stored in these individual variables. The logic for determining the maximum value would be really, really awkward. Now, fortunately for us, all of these data items have the same data type. They are all integers. The data is homogeneous. This is a perfect scenario for utilizing arrays. So I'm going to delete my 5 integers and I'm going to declare an integer array. I'm going to call it temp data. Okay, so I'm going to declare an array of integers. Let's just make that a comment. And I also need to tell Java how many items are going to be stored in the array. I need to tell Java the length of the array, and this is how to do it. I'll say, hey Java, let's make a variable which is going to communicate with an integer array, and please make it 5 elements long. So we're declaring and initializing an array. Okay, we're initializing it to have a length of 5. Okay. So now that we've got our global integer array, let's generate some data, right, to go into that array. Now remember, the name of the array is temp data. That's the name of the array. And each element in an array has a unique index starting at 0. So this element here is temp data 0, temp data 1, temp data 2, temp data 3, and temp data 4. Okay, I'm just going to undo that for a moment because I want to keep that math.random. So what I'm going to say is temp data 0, which is the first element in the array, is going to be assigned a random value, similar to this. Okay, then we'll do it for temp data 1, and then 2, and then 3, and then 4. So these indexes are allowing us to communicate with the array temp data. Okay. Oh, look at that, from 0 all the way up to 4. 0, 1, hey, this might work. Check this out. For int I equals 0 to I is less than or equal to 4, I plus plus. All right. Instead of hard coding those index numbers, let's use I. Wow. Okay. So I starts at 0, and temp data 0 will be assigned a random number. Then we do I plus plus, I becomes 1, temp data 1, and then 2, and then 3, and then 4. Okay? So just a couple of lines of code, we can populate an array with random numbers. Imagine if we had 1,000 numbers in the array. Okay, just 2 lines of code and we can populate an array of 1,000 elements. What if we don't know the length of the array? What we could do is this. I is less than temp data dot length. There's another way to process an array using a for loop. Okay, temp data dot length is 5. There are 5 elements in the array going from index 0 to index 4. And that's what that loop is going to do for us. Just to see what's going on, I'm going to do a system.out.print inside the for loop. And let's just take a look at each element as we process it. Temp data, square brackets, I. Okay, so let's just see if this is working. Just going to go up to my main program here. We'll do that in a minute. Get max, and we'll display max later as well. Let's just run the code where we're generating some data. Is it going to work? Yay! Okay, we've got 5 random values stored in an array. The value at index 0 is 31. Right? That's index 0. The value at index 1, index 2, index 3, and index 4. It works. Okay, now then, let's just move on to defining the getMax function. Let's just get rid of this awkward code. What I'm going to do is I'm going to use that technique to loop through the array. Now, let's give max a starter value. What would you do? I'll tell you what, let's give it a starter value of temp data 0. Okay? We're going to say the maximum value is the first value in the array, and then we're going to go into the for loop. If temp data I is greater than max, then we're going to update max to be temp data I. Okay? So that for loop is going to work its magic. That's one strategy when we're working with arrays, trying to find a max or a min or something like that. We can just set the first value in the array to be max. Okay? Now we know that this array is populated with positive numbers greater than 0. So I could also do this. I could say max is 0. Okay, there's another way to do it. And of course, when the for loop has finished its magic, we need to return a value. That's what this function does. So let's do that. and there's my getMax function. So let's go back up to my main program, welcome, generate data, call getMax, and grab the returned value, and then display the result. Let's see if it works. The maximum value is 36. Is that true? Yay! It works, and there is an introduction to arrays.